Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another quick game of Interplanetary I Spy going on here for all you space detectives and paranoia police alike. And today we're looking at this image by Neville Thompson of MSL 1441. Now this is a really high quality Gigapan. He's actually used EDR straight PDS images, which are way better quality than the usual rubbish we get on the JPL website, the browse images we normally get. These are way superior, brighter and clearer and everything. And you can see a lot of detail here. Now the main thing we're going to be looking at today is this bit here. We've got this rather strange thing here up on the ridge, which is very odd, but which has got this kind of square thing on the end of it with a kind of strange neck to it. I really don't know what this is. It looks like some kind of lever or something. Why would it have this kind of block-shaped object on the end of it? And I'll show you some close-ups of that in a minute. There's also over here, if I go along the top, we have this rather strange thing sticking up, which looks like another metal thing, which may be part of some kind of reinforced steel or something that may have held some of this potential building together. Now, I've said many times before that I think a lot of these so-called buttes and ridges are ancient ruined buildings, and you can see all these long straight ridges running through them. Okay, these are buildings that are very ancient and eroded and covered in sand and partially buried, very similar to some you might see in places like Carthage in North Africa, where I went years ago, a place called Tunisia. Got very similar structures to this there, and in fact the ones that haven't been dug up and excavated look very much like this, but these are older. These look much older than the ones at Carthage. These look like 1,000,000 years old. The ones at Carthage aren't that old. They're thousands of years old. There's also this thing that looks like a gargoyle just here. It's a bit hard to get your head around, but there's a face just there and a rather strange thing sticking up there. There's loads and loads of crazy things in here, and often you will see the statues at the bottom of these ridge lines, but also you'll see them on top. These are actual remains of ruined buildings. In fact, this may have been one very long structure. If I zoom out, it goes all the way along here. This is hundreds of feet long. I would say this is about 100 plus feet long and about 20 or 30 feet high at the highest point here, probably about 20 feet. I'm not sure exactly, but they're not as big as you may think. And the main point of interest was this. Now, these look like internal walls. In other words, the structure has collapsed away from it. And what we're looking at here is internal walls. And we have, on this potential internal wall here, what looks like a mural just here. I'll zoom in. And we have figures painted in bright colours like gold, green, yellow, and blue, all sorts of different colours here. Unfortunately, it's in kind of shadow here, so we're not seeing it that brightly. So what you need to do is take a screenshot of this and then stick it in your processing thing like this. So I've got a raw clip of it here, and you can clearly see these strange figures and very bright colours. Now what happens when you change the contrast? Now what I normally do is I use a thing called fade correction. That's fade correction. Then I add brightness, then contrast, and then brightness and contrast again. And now you can really start to see the colours showing through. Okay, that's what I do. I often go a bit brighter than that. I've got a version here which is much brighter, so that you can see that on your mobile devices out there. And what happens is you'll see these golds and yellows and greens come out really, really bright. Do I think this is a mural? Yes, I do. Why do I think that? Well, because I've found lots of other artwork in the area, including statues, figurines, and gold leafed relief carvings and all sorts of stuff. All you've got to do is look at my channel, and you'll see examples of this on my channel here. Very recent examples. I've got this one here, King of Mars found, carved relief in gold leaf. Check that out. There's a carving of a bloke, or what I would call a man with an elongated head, and part of it is done in gold. Okay, So we may be seeing something very similar here today. And also there are countless statues and works of art and figurines in the same area as we're looking at today. So this is by no means a one-off, but this is probably the best example I've seen of what looks like a painting on Mars. We have all these lovely bright colours and shapes, and we have here what seems to be a figure just here with a pointed head coming down like this, 2 legs, a sort of arm there. Now some of this may actually be relief carving as well, and maybe gold leafed, like that previous thing I just showed you. We've got another arm there coming down, holding something. Now there's not a great deal of detail here, but an awful lot more than there was before. Obviously because this is done from a PDS image, which means it's far superior quality to the JPEGs we normally get from the JPL website. There also seems to be another figure here with an arm coming round here like this, and a head there, 2 eyes. So we've got some very interesting stuff here, but unfortunately it looks like a lot of it's eroded away and a lot of the colours probably washed out. There's also this rather strange thing here, I don't know what that is, with a sort of gold bit sticking out there. There seems to be what is a possible head here coming round like that with an eye there and a nose there. Okay, but when you zoom in it doesn't get any clearer because this stuff is actually quite a long way off from the rover really, and it hasn't zoomed right in, so we're not at maximum zoom. So the only reason we can see any detail here really at all is because I've cropped it out and we're looking a bit closer, but it's there on the Gigapan. All you've got to do is look at the raw image, and if you look at let's go back, let's take this back to its raw format, and you can see those colours trying to show through the orange filter. You can see that yellow trying to show through there, the gold, and some of the things you can actually see slightly clearer once you let your eyes adjust. If you just stare at it for a while, or just do that, just do a basic fade correction, and you can see that head there and that head there. There's also something up here, and I can't really work out what that is, but of course a lot of this may be damaged. In fact, this may have been done on a plastered or rendered wall, and some of the rendering may have come off. Now, what it did remind me of, in fact, is actually a fresco. Now, if you look up the word fresco, fresco means fresh in Italian. Okay. Now, a fresco is basically a painting style that came along in the Renaissance period, where in Italy what they would do is they would plaster the inside of a wall and paint on it whilst the plaster was still drying. They just let it dry out slightly and then paint straight onto it. But now what this meant was that the artist could paint onto the very smooth flat surface without all the paint soaking into the plaster when the plaster is completely dry. So because the plaster was still quite wet, or semi-wet I should say, it wouldn't absorb all the paint, which meant it gave it a nice finish, a nice surface to paint on. Okay. Now if you just painted straight onto dry plaster, it would absorb all the colour and it would be very difficult to get a smooth and nice even finish like they've done on here. So I'll put a link to this. There's also some cave paintings here of alien stuff going back many thousands of years, which it reminded me of also, with these strange figures here, the 10,000-year-old figures in a cave, which look very alien. Some of them, some of these are in Australia. I think these are the Wandjina in Australia. Some are in North America. In fact, these appear all over the world. These very ancient cave paintings showing what look like alien figures. I think this one's from North America, if I remember rightly. Somewhere in North, I can't remember exactly, but that looks familiar. And there's things with what look like little ships and spacecraft and strange aliens with strange headgear, like sort of space helmets and stuff like we have here. Some really cool stuff here. And this is what it reminds me of, but the colours are very, very bright. Now, these more primitive sort of cave paintings usually have very basic colours, and often done in reds and browns and blacks and natural kind of earth colours. And the pigments would have been made from stuff like ochre, which would have been ground down and mixed with water and spit and God knows what else, and then painted on to the surface, often by hand or just using a stick or something. But then you have later artwork where you have stuff done inside places like the pyramids, where you have gold leaf and you have other stuff like that, and much more elaborate colours, like you would get on a fresco painting like this, okay, where you've got these golds and blues and browns and greens. Now that isn't a very good version of that image, but you get the point. What I'm trying to say is these are usually done with a very limited palette of colours, 2 or 3 colours, right? And usually quite dark, browny, sort of ochre colours, cave paintings. But more modern paintings are usually done with much more sophisticated technology. In other words, they've got lots and lots of different types of pigment, and then ground down the different pigment colours to make golds and bright blues, using elements such as lapis to get a nice deep marine sort of blue. And that's what we have on Mars. So this may actually mean in this area, somewhere near this area, in some of these rocks that are lying around, there is lapis. Now lapis is a highly, highly valuable mineral that's used to make these deep, deep colours, and is used in dyeing clothing and also in paint, okay? Known as lapis lazuli, and it was used by ancient artists to get some of these bright blues and bright colours, okay? They would also use things like titanium or lead to get the white. You'd have lead white in the paint. So lead ground down makes a nice kind of white colour. And all sorts of different things were used to get these amazing colours. And it came to a pinnacle around the sort of 16th, 17th century in Italy. And modern pigments are made of much safer materials and cheaper materials, because some of these things are toxic. In other words, this may even be gold leaf here we're looking at, and possibly stuff like lapis to get some of these blues and other colours made from various minerals, okay? A more sophisticated mural done in highly bright and intense colours, which means it's probably not that primitive, okay? So there we are, we've got a figure here. You can see there's another one next to it, with an arm coming round like that. But the details are a bit hard to work out because I think a lot of it's eroded away, and there seems to be a figure up here with what look like angel's wings or something coming down here like this, perhaps. So could this be a religious building that we're looking at? And would that explain why there are so many gargoyles in the air, as I've shown in dozens and dozens of videos recently? They're all over the place, these strange creatures. There are sphinxes, there are little carved animals, there are what look like burial carvings where you would have like a headstone on a burial, like this one here. Got this thing here, which is like a headstone with render still on it. So if you check some of my previous videos out, you can see that there are carvings and bits of artwork all over the place, strewn around on the ground, half buried. Some of them are on the side of buildings. We've got this golden burial mask here, which I found very close to the one the mural we're looking at today. In fact, this was from Sol, let me see. Yeah, here we are. This is Sol 1443, and we have the golden burial mask here. Now, you can see this video on my other channel, which is Space Detective 1. This sort of went almost viral. It had 39,000 views in a few days. And but what we've got here is this ridgeline is just further over to the right of the one we're looking at today. So if I show you this one and zoom out, there's another butte or ancient ruin here, which carries along further to the right, and that's where the golden mask is partially buried, just below the ridge, okay? So this ridgeline here is just further along. As the rover drove along slowly, it took photographs of all these ridgelines all in a row, okay? So you can see that. Check that video out. what's cool about this one is you can actually see it on 2 different days, one from the side as the rover drove closer and one from the front here. So we got the same object from the side view and from the front. So this is there. And anyone who says it isn't doesn't know what they're talking about and hasn't done the research. These things are actually there. You may disagree with what they are exactly. This could be a burial mask, it could be a statue, but it is metallic and it is a work of art. It's just a question of which type of work of art we're looking at, whether this is actual gold or some other precious metal, a statuette or figurine, whether it was a burial mask or part of a sarcophagi, could be either. But either way, it's art. So there is art on Mars. There's the giant sphinx, there's the Colossus thing I found just a few days ago, which you can see on my channel, which is this thing here. That is about 500 feet tall. It's absolutely enormous, so check that out. And go back and check out these other things, like this warrior headstone thing. That's really interesting. That is in quite good detail. And there's also the King of Mars with the carved relief on the side of a rock here, which has been carved and then gold leafed. So check that out. There's also the goddess figurine, which is another recent find. There's lots and lots of things like this in the area, so do go and check them out. I'm not making this up, okay? I'll show you a close-up of that, which looks like a gargoyle. And you've got the head there with eyes, nose and a mouth. There's the nose sticking down. There's the mouth. And you've got this rather strange thing sticking up. So don't expect to understand some of these things immediately because they are quite weird. This is Mars after all. But they do follow what I think are basic principles of art, being that art only exists for its own sake. In other words, it doesn't necessarily fulfill any purpose other than to decorate something or to adorn a building. And you would not get artwork like this on just any old building. This would have to be some kind of religious building or building of some kind of significance, either politically or religiously. And it says to me that this must have been quite an important area. I've said this many times before, that there are probably temples in the area and religious buildings and burial structures and all sorts of things in the area. And we even have this thing here, which I think someone else posted the other day. I think Thomas from Mars Moon Space TV put this up. This looks like an aeroplane. Now, this isn't very long. This is only a couple of feet long, maybe 2 or 3 feet long maximum. But it does look like a tail of an aeroplane. So, but this may be part of a boat. It could be off some other kind of structure. Who knows? But that was interesting. We got what looked like sort of limbs here as well coming down. Very strange. So is that an aeroplane? Probably not. But it could be a small drone. It doesn't have to be a massive aircraft to be an aeroplane. It could be a drone. That does look very much like the tail of an aeroplane. So there we are. So I didn't find that either. There was also this thing found by Martian the other day, which I thought I'd show you, which looks a bit like a lion's head just here. You can see the nose there and the eyes and the mouth here. Okay. She said this was a statue thing here as well, but I think that's kind of so badly eroded you can't really tell. It could be another gargoyle or carving that was on the side of this building that's kind of fallen down to the bottom here. So these things are all over this ridgeline. Loads and loads of crazy things. Let's have one quick look at that again. Let's go to the enhanced clip of that. There we are. You've got the figures on the left and some strange details up here with what look like wing shapes and lots of crazy stuff. So you people out there may see a lot more in this than I'm seeing. I'm only pointing out the most obvious things to me, but you may see a lot more than I'm seeing today. So thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now.